Hi, my name is Karen Ziegler, and I help leaders design the future of how their company works through the delivery of design thinking, training, and consulting. And in today's video, I am going to answer the question, why is empathy the key to creativity and innovation? If you're familiar with design thinking, then you'll know that the first step of the 5 steps of design thinking is empathy. But oftentimes, people get flustered and wonder, what do we need to work with feelings for? Why do feelings matter? And when they think of empathy, they think of feelings. And while that may be part of it, it is not the key part of it. So I want to talk about empathy a few minutes, and then I want to dig into why empathy is so key to creativity and innovation. You know, at its core, empathy is about understanding the pain points or the struggles of your user. Obviously, if that is your customer, then you're talking about the struggles or pain points they have in the area that you serve. Not necessarily about your product, though it can be about your product, but in the areas of finance or the areas of healthcare or whatever it is your area your company serves, what are the pains or struggles that your user has? When it comes to leadership, which is what I love to focus on because it has such a powerful impact, your user is your teammate, your team members. So what are the pain points of your team members? The ones that you are trying to gather together to perform at their highest potential to do the task that your team is called to do and that you're called to lead to. So what are those pain points? That's what empathy is about, understanding what those pain points are, what those struggles are, so that you can then innovate and create a solution that alleviates those, that basically ends the suffering of the user. So why is empathy key to creativity and innovation? Well, quite frankly, it's because empathy and creativity both fall in the same camp. And by the same camp, I mean, as humans, we have our physical bodies, we have our mental bodies, which is made up of our right brain and our left brain, and then we have our hearts, which is known as the human spirit. And I'm not talking here necessarily about any religious beliefs, but I'm talking about the human spirit, that part of us that has our gifts, our talents, our hopes, our dreams, our fears, that part of us. And our left brain is our logical brain. We've worked that thing to death, and in fact, it's the cause of a lot of our own sufferings. But then our right brain is where the creativity is. And how that's connected to the spirit, I don't know if it's one and the same, but the location in the body doesn't matter as much as creativity is out of the right brain, not the logical brain. And quite frankly, part of the reason why individuals have such a tussle with empathy is they're trying to keep it in the left brain. And actually, empathy is not a logical thing. Empathy is the key to creativity because it gets you, when it's done correctly, into the right brain, which is your creative brain. And so what do I mean by into your right brain correctly? Well, first of all, what I'm saying to you is you have to stop thinking. Stop thinking entirely. Thinking is an inhibitor to your creativity. It will come later in the prototyping phase, but for the beginning of the design thinking process, all the way through to ideation, you want to be in your right brain hemisphere. So stop thinking is the key. And there are some key elements to that are very important in making sure that you understand those user pain points. And there's some overlap in them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'll just go through them very quickly. First one being understanding. Obviously, we want to understand our users and what their pain points are and why those things are pain points for them. You'll see as you begin to use empathy with your team members that the pain points may be different amongst your team members. So what bothers one may not bother another, and so forth. But it's in the synthesis of and the intuitively sifting of those pain points that you discover the main pain point, the ones that are really inhibiting their performance or maybe inhibiting the performance of a product as well. So understanding their perspective, their point of view. And that is difficult to do because our logical brain wants to get in the way. We want to, tell them what's right, or tell them what we know or what we've learned, or, what the majority of people think. Instead, we just need to let go of our understanding of a problem or our understanding or viewpoint and try to understand theirs. Second one is tolerate. And so that intolerance is another left brain thing. We get intolerant about inefficiencies. We get intolerant about maybe someone's too boisterous. We get intolerant about maybe someone being too quiet. It is in our intolerance that we are not empathetic. And when we are not empathetic, then we don't understand the users, and we can in no way develop a service, product, or even team innovation that's going to elevate what is needed to be elevated there. So tolerance is a key part. And again, you think about this as I list these out: understanding, I'll give you all of them real quick. Understanding, tolerance, forgiveness, non-judgment, inclusivity, and acceptance. All of those require us to let go of our own preconditioned thoughts, our own preconditioned rules, behaviors, beliefs, whatever, to embrace who it is that's in front of us and how they think and see and view the world. And so that is something that's much needed, as you can imagine, in our world today. But anyway, so let's keep going. Forgiveness. Especially when you begin to use the design thinking process to elevate team performance, and you begin interviewing your users, which are your team members, you may hear some things that step on your toes. Perhaps they don't like the way you do something, or perhaps they think something is a total waste of time. It's hard not to get our feelings hurt or get our pride hurt, our ego hurt, when we begin to hear things that maybe people don't think our way is necessarily the best way. And so we have to be able to turn off the logical mind, turn off the ego, and listen empathetically and forgive them if they've hurt our feelings, because their intentions, if you're asking the questions correctly, their intentions are not to hurt you. Their intentions are just to share what it is that's a problem for them, what it is that's inhibiting their performance, perhaps the team's performance, and so forth. So it does involve a bit of forgiveness on our part to not take everything we hear personally, whether you're talking about a product that you created from a baby, or whether you're talking about the way you run your team or organization. We have to let go of what we think of how we do things and recognize it's not perfect and there are other perspectives. And so that's part of empathy as well. Non-judgment. Really in the empathy phase, we are really all about gathering the information, gathering their thoughts, their feelings, what's painful to them, what they struggle with, observing, listening, really, and doing all of that without judgment. And again, that's in the right brain. When we get into our left brain, our logical brain, then we begin to judge. And we begin to think, well, that doesn't work because of this. And we begin to try and put all the pieces of the puzzle together, but it's too soon. Don't do that yet. You're still in the right brain function where you're not thinking. You're just taking in, really absorbing the information, the observations that you are seeing and hearing in your team members or in your customers in the case of product innovation. Inclusivity. This means, which it's a big buzzword these days anyway, we're not leaving anyone or their opinions out. Whether you are, say for instance, you want to do an innovation for your team, something that's going to make the team more cohesive and work better, tap into the potential of everyone's highest potential. And you may think, okay, well, we want to innovate the way we perhaps hire employees and bring them on board. So you may think, well, I need to talk to people that have been hired in the last 6 months. When in fact, the person that's been there 10 years may have a lot of insights as to how the hiring process could work better. not only from what she hears from her new team members as they come and get infiltrated into the group, but what she hears, friends of hers say that may have had a positive experience. No one's perspective is off the table, especially when you're talking about building team performance. Every user has a perspective, even if it doesn't seem to apply to them in particularly, as in the case of hiring new members, they still have a perspective that's going to be meaningful to you because they are a part of that system that is bringing in the new hires and is bringing them on board into their positions. So we don't want to exclude anyone for any reason. If they are a part of the issue, then they should be a part of the solution. And then the last thing is accepting. Now, accepting is very different than right and wrong. When we get in our logical brain, our brain wants to sort things between this is right and this is wrong, or this is helpful and this is not helpful. In the empathy phase, when we are listening to all of our users, it's really about accepting what everyone has to say, accepting their opinion, accepting their perspective. We don't get into the sorting of what's right and wrong, what's useful and not useful for quite a while, but in the empathy phase, it's all about accepting. So again, this is why empathy is so important to creativity and ultimately to innovation, because it puts us in that place of being in our right brain, where we have to turn off our logical brain for a moment, tune into the user that's in front of us, make sure that we are understanding, that we are tolerant, that we are forgiving them if they step on our toes, even if they don't mean to, that we are non-judgmental, we are inclusive, and we are accepting of them. So when we hit those 5 things, and that takes a lot of practice because our logical brain wants to be turned on all the time, then we are in our right brain. And then it's much easier to continue that intuitive process of defining the problem and ideating a solution that's going to create an innovation that's meaningful to your team or meaningful to your customers. So I hope you found that this video useful. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, turn the bells on so you won't miss an episode. And again, I want to thank you